Good old boys.
I'm Mark.
Bog beef.
Fredo.
Still got it?
Never lost it.
Let's get that money. White boys.
Unironic big Bon Jovi fan, by the way. Sorry, didn't mean to cut off your ad read there, Bug.
No problem. He was here. But usually, you know how you always see the World War II generals with the binoculars around their neck, even if they're taking like their official photo.
Yeah, because that's like I'm making moves. Yeah.
Yeah, you always see Bon Jovi with the shades, so it's perfect. You can come get your G-Lock glasses of color. The reminds me, you know, I got the, you guys box fan appreciators?
No, I mean I have one, but I don't really use it. I have air conditioning.
Oh, you mean like the old school box fans? I mean, yeah, as a kid, man, that was my thing. I love that thing. Nowadays, though. So what I have in my bedroom, so I'm like one of these guys that sleeps in the pitch black bedroom, right? Like I have, my room has these special like linen things that cover the window.
Yeah.
Like,
blackout blinds, right?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, I have those too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also I keep the door shut for the same reason, right? So because I keep the door shut, even with the air on, sometimes it gets a little stale, like in the bedroom. So I have this thing in there called a Vornado. Are you guys woke on this?
No.
It's basically a fan, but it creates like the name implies, like a cyclone effect. You don't point it at yourself. You actually point it like at against one wall, pointing at the opposite wall, slightly tilted up, and it actually creates circulation over the ceiling.
Okay. Right. Thanks for the ad read. Now I want to buy a Vornado.
Well, yeah. I was thinking because the Lascos, if you're a real box fan appreciator, you know you got to get the Lasco. That's the Rolls Royce, the Cadillac of the they just.
I guess. I mean, it's hot here now too. Like we're up heat index over 100 here, but you know the humidity is never usually that bad here. I think it's a different situation in Florida. Like if I lived in Florida, I'd probably have like an entire setup of fans as well as air conditioning.
It doesn't
How
get that. It don't get that. I don't know about your part of the state, Bob. It doesn't get that hot here though. Like comparatively, like low 90s is as hot as it gets where I live. It's just very, very humid. It's like a different kind of thing.
jalapeno poppers power out. Yep, a lot of thunderstorms this time of year. um.
It's Houston, right? Yeah, isn't Houston
Oh
out of
yeah,
power because of the hurricane?
yeah. I forgot. Man, there's just hurricanes everywhere all the time, everywhere I live. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people that have out of power several days there. I mean, I was in Austin when we just had like a minor like snowfall, and it wreaked hell on the whole city for like a week. But hell, this isn't Houston. Still isn't even rebuilt from the last time that they had a monster hurricane, which was probably like 5 years ago. Um, yeah, I mean, there's still things are still being rebuilt from the last hurricane. But yeah, I was gonna say, the last go, I'm in the market for another box fan. I shouldn't be, but I left my really, I got a selection. I got several of them. One of them was the Mac Daddy. It was like a metal box fan, just baller as hell. They don't make it anymore, and I left it outside doing
Do you,
and
do you mean the blades were metal too?
no, the case is metal and stuff, and it's just like
So it's like, did they make based box fans back in the 50s that could like tear your arm off? That
Oh
would
yeah,
explain a lot of
my
things.
my box fan that I had as a kid had metal blades. It was like so. This was in the 80s, and the fan was probably from the 70s or the late 60s. But the one I had in my room as a kid had metal blades.
yeah. If you go to antique shops now, they'll just have like these women that buy this they they fix up houses and shit with like they put all
Flippers.
these tchotchkes on the walls and shit like that.
Yeah, so like my girl and I call those the words because like they always have words. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like it'll say like
Love.
love or yeah, exactly. Things like that. Not a fan of the words with one exception. I was at a woman's house once and she had one up that said friends are just therapists you drink with, but we kept pronouncing it as friends are just the rapists you drink with. So like that was a pretty good one.
Yeah. 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 Sometimes. Uh, yeah. Yeah. Like just like your
It's always
average,
funnier when Fredo does this because you never expect it.
your average like desk fan from the '60s was made like like a nuclear device or a jet engine is made today. Like so you could just throw them on a table or whatever. Anyways, I was doing some reading outside. I set it outside and didn't think about it. Got all rusted up. I figure I might have to clean up or I get the new Lascos, which they come in colors just like the G-Lock glasses. They're I like that.
Yeah, I have Alaska fan. The only time I use it is like there's that period before it gets too hot to really need to run the AC. I just put the fan in the window, blow it out, keep that circulation going. You know what I'm saying?
You get the cross breeze going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so what I do is like my house on all sides is like big sliders, right? I mean, I don't have curtains or anything. So like I just open up all the slot because for the view. So like I just open up all the sliders and then I have one of those gigantic ceiling fans. And if you get that thing going, like if you crank that thing up all the way, sometimes like you can't even work. There's too much wind. You know what I'm saying? Like the cross breeze gets like way too intense.
Awesome. Yeah, I get a little tech tip for you guys living on the Gulf Coast, living in the deep South. Get you a box fan. Throw that shit at your feet. Point at your balls. You ain't gonna have them salty balls tonight. It'll be great. You know what I'm talking about. All right, big news tonight. Let's get going. Obviously there's three big stories tonight. We'll start out with a smaller one, and we'll go to the big one. So, I mean, this would, yeah, it's. I mean, we'll start out talking about the vice president pick.
Yeah, this would have been the headline story if not for other things that happened.
Yeah, and a lot of people were, I tried to, I think people always get super hyped for the VP pick, and I don't think that's think about it. Like, what does the vice president do? It's not that big of a deal. I'll just start off like, so what can we say is relevant? I mean,
Wait,
go ahead, go ahead.
like, okay, so like if this was 1996, yeah, who do you pick for VP? Back then, you could get a little movement maybe if like you pick somebody from the right state, but even then, it wasn't like it. Since then, like the mid or early 20th century, or maybe you can go back to the 19th century, they haven't really helped that much for the election. It was kind of just not a great job, in all honesty. In this case, it's a very important pick. As I said before, that was going to be the tone setter. You would know what he was thinking about doing, and if frankly he had learned his lessons based on who he picked. I think only in this specific election with this specific president, the VP pick is really important.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, especially like as a consumer. As a you want like the most devastating person. Now that is not how leaders often feel. Leaders don't like often you're incentivized to get someone who can't challenge your authority to be your not vice president, be your second. I'm talking very general. I'm talking about you're going to be the manager of a quick stop.
Yeah, Lincoln and FDR both did that.
Yeah,
just throwing that out there.
Yeah, but I mean, so let's get to the interesting stuff. So I mean,
sorry, I should specify they both picked somebody who couldn't possibly be a political threat. No, nobodies who were not very strong politicians.
The Quayle pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you like people think, well, why did George Senior do that? He was in the CIA. He knows he knows what these people are capable of. So what's super interesting is that obviously, I don't know if people are just like, we're kind of inside, but kind of outside enough to be able to just talk about this, I think, rather openly. You can find this, you find this in, but you kind of find this in sort of like, so this is the time you go look at, these sort of, the moderate dissident. When I say dissident, I don't mean like dissident right. I mean like, the sort of crabby people in the middle that don't have a home. They piss everybody off. Like, who's the very hirsute fellow in New York?
I'm sorry.
Big hairy guy. He,
you're not. What's his profession?
He's a writer.
Michael Tracy.
Guys like that.
It's funny because I thought that's who you meant, but I didn't want to just blurt out his name. So we would be undefeated in the password game still. I got it. Continue.
Yeah. Guys like that will tell you stuff like this right now. But I mean, we're kind of close enough to that. We've never got any field bucks or anything like that. So obviously, I mean,
we take them.
Yeah, he is this is a Thiel pick. That's not no big secret or whatever. And so people are like, like this is dissident right pick. I mean, yeah, pretty much. People say, well, maybe he's read Curtis Jarvin. Yeah. Like, by the way, so I mean, like, none
his
of
name dropped him. Yeah.
None of this stuff is secret. People are like, well, what does Peter Thiel want? He's got a magazine. People like, well, maybe this one guy on Twitter is saying what Peter Thiel wants to be. You don't have to do that. You can go read, like, he literally has a magazine. He pays people to write words. He likes hearing. It's called Palantir, I think.
That's the name of his company.
Man,
yeah. all his stuff is I can't.
Yeah, Palantir it's a government contractor. They're the ones that like you feed it data and it figures out everything about everybody.
Oh, I got to think of what the editor of his magazine's name is. It's it's one of these. He's got like these a funny name like Bruno Mars or something like that. No, it sounds like a fantasy thing or whatever. But anyways, I can't think of the name of his magazine. He's got a magazine, so you can go check it out. So Yeah, I mean it's definitely in the mix. They're talking Silicon Valley and stuff. I just want to say the thing about this stuff, and this is how I'm going to feel about a lot of this stuff, is that this is kind of why. So like if you think about this stuff, you could think, well, I could like understand what's going on in politics by like knowing exactly what these people are doing and saying to each other and all that stuff like that. Yeah, you probably could, but you're not going to get that. You're never going to know these interpersonal dynamics. Now, what you will know is that like the patronage stuff. So, like, if Peter Thiel has been bankrolling this guy for like years and years, the way like LBJ was bankrolled by Brown and Root or something, yes, you can assume this guy's interest will be represented here. That works. If you try to map out like, well, this guy on Twitter, that guy on Twitter, they went to school because I was reading this stuff earlier today and my mind was going numb. I was talking about the uh, uh Vance, Vance and Obama worked at the same place and who's the chief of staff for Biden? Rain or Rant?
Didn't he resign?
I don't know.
I mean, like that's. Well, I'm not trying to throw things off, but it's like.
Well, that guy was there too. All these
it's
people.
Weird. It's weird. Like we asked like who's running the country. Like we don't really know.
Well, Bobby, if you were thinking of Ron Klain, but I think to Merrick's point, he did move on.
But I mean, I said, yeah, he resigned, but I mean, he moved on. Like he might still be doing the same job he was doing before. We don't know. Sorry, continue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Right. So like, oh, and this guy knows this guy, and that guy's, yeah, they know all each other, but like, if they're not like have a direct patronage relationship, it doesn't matter. And like, even if it does matter, you don't understand like these interpersonal dynamics. Like there are cliques within cliques, and like this girl will screw this guy, and then that clique goes off with that clique, and like you can never get that stuff unless you really know. And what we've determined, something I thought a lot of things would be different about social media age. For one thing, I thought like, it's the people that sort of dominate the social media aspect. You think of like the Palladium magazine. Thank you. You think about like the Destiny Boogie 2988. He's all over the headlines today. All these sort of figures that sort of dominate the social media. I like you ever see those like beautiful picturesque cities on the Mediterranean?
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was like, okay, look at that place. Really cool people must live there. They must live there. Or think about like all the surfers on, the North Beach of Sydney or whatever. I was like, well, I could just sort of give you like, think like that. Those are like the coolest people. Surely they will sort of dominate, social media and things. People like, wow, this guy is super cool. They don't. It's people like Boogie and Destiny and shit like that. And the other thing I thought was like, wow, it's so easy to sort of leak things and stuff. We're going to like know everything. We don't. There's a lot of sort of pressures on these relationships and stuff, blah, blah. It just turns out we don't really know. We get stuff that's old. We get stuff that's sort of low focus. And so, my point is going to be through a lot of stuff tonight is like, when you try to get in that stuff, where does it actually give you? It feels like when you study philosophy, you study it for hours, you read these books, you get really into it. You feel like you've almost got something you can get your hands on. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, that didn't really do anything for me. Like it doesn't really get me any closer to knowing what's going on. Thank you.
My view is much more simplistic. It's that of all the pieces that were on the board, Vance is probably the best choice for like it. Okay, let me phrase it this way, because I said that on Twitter, like, yeah, he was the best one. He was the best out of all the options. People were like, well, that you're underselling it. You're blackpilling, whatever. But it's like if you're playing baseball and it's like the bottom of the ninth and you're down 5 runs and you hit a triple. That's cool. Like, good job, clap or whatever, but the game's not over. You're not even actually close to winning. yet. You know, you got a long way to go. Just not picking Marco Rubio is cool, but it's not really something to take a victory lap over, you know? And I mean, I guess to answer the question that pop up, like, well, who would be the best person? Like somebody with an army would be cool. I don't know that there's actually anybody who fits that bill anymore. Like, you know, that's what somebody who had like an outside source of power would probably be the best kind of vice president to have, someone super loyal. And I don't know that he's loyal, you know? Nobody does. He's a politician.
This is what I laid out. So by the way, a year ago, you know, all this stuff about, you know, Eric Prince and stuff like that. You can go read what I was writing on Twitter, what I was saying on this program a year ago, before any of these people. I said that basically you have two choices if you're Donald Trump. You have, if you think things can be handled above board, which is probably, you know, that's a stance. I'm not against that. Then my thought was you need a lawyer, and you need a really, really smart lawyer guy. If you don't think things will be handled that way, if you think things will be January 6th-ish, you need someone who's comfortable in a less than legal world. And I don't mean like he's going to start shooting people. I mean, like, there's some people that any kind of murky situation are going to be, are not going to be as skilled as some. Basically, the U.S. government, when things popped off in Katrina, you know, I don't, you know, I don't worship Eric Prince or anything, but when shit popped off in Katrina, you know, the U.S. government called Eric Prince and said, "Hey, we need help us guys get out of there," which they've done with him several times. Because those sort of like, well, who's really in charge? I'm not sure. And it's all about like, there's all these sort of weird games. Like, what can I get away with? It's 99% of the time not violence, but there's this sort of like poker game of like, what can I do? What can I like? That world is not the legal world.
It's funny because usually like the flow chart for who you're going to pick as vice president, it's not quite inverted now, but it's all jumbled up. Like usually the big thing that you were worried about, absent ideas that, like, for example, people were talking about that he should have picked Youngkin because Youngkin might be able to flip Virginia, which could make you president. Maybe that if it's close enough, that would have been possible. And like that's what people thought about in the past. The next would be like, well, coattails. Like, you know, in the next election, who would I like to be the next president? Who do I want, you know, to be my protege? To you would think about that. Like the last thing, then perhaps who would be loyal to me, and then the last thing would be, would this person be effective at governing? Because like you don't really think about that one in normal times because he's the vice president. He's not going to get a chance to do that. In this one, it's jumbled up. The probably the number one thing you have is he loyal? Is he going to pull a Mike Pence on me, or is he going to back me up? 2, can he govern if they kill me? And that's at this point a very important question to know. And then a very important thing to know. And like dead last is he going to help me flip a state? And obviously they agree because they picked the guy from the most in the bag state. Like Ohio is, I mean, what is this? Alabama tier lock for Republicans.
Yeah, just because they passed an election.
Yeah, because they don't let you ballot.
By the way, one factor you're forgetting here was that Youngkin was, I believe, is taller than Donald Trump. I just can't picture Trump ever being okay campaigning with a guy taller than him.
That would be weird to see somebody standing. Like, how tall is Trump? 6'3", 5?
Yeah.
Like they see that. Youngkin's 6'7".
I think Trump's a real 6'3" because ever since these apps come out, we sort of measure that like the NBA or the NFL, where every person in the NFL is listed at 6'4" and 6'5". They're not.
The main like. I've seen a lot of people repeating the stuff about how vice presidents don't matter. Obviously they do. They certainly matter if your life is in danger. But, you know, ask Mike Pence how important a vice president is. Ask Joe Biden how important a vice president is. If Joe Biden didn't have Kamala Harris as his VP, he would have probably been removed by now. But he did the Lincoln FDR thing of picking somebody that absolutely nobody wants to see president. So like it can matter a lot, especially when things get weird, and we are definitely in a weird era.
Yeah. There's a couple of guys I would have liked. I would have liked, I like Greg Abbott. I think he's pretty, but again, I'm not thinking of this as a God Emperor job. I just want to bring up one more thing with the Eric Prince thing. A lot of people are saying, why don't you talk about Eric Prince anything more? Because it'd be weird. Because like Eric Prince is like he's right now he's live on Twitter. He writes articles in in IM 1776. Like
yeah, you were trying to convince him to try to be vice president. He wants our job.
Yeah, so, but I mean, he's actually speaking for himself now. That would be super strange. Back then he wasn't. He would just go on like military shows and talk about the military and stuff. So I mean, yeah, you can go talk to him now. I mean, that's he speaks for himself. Yeah, Jim Webb was awesome. Fredo,
Yeah.
what do you think about the VP pick?
Well, I am with the Merrick take. I mean, it was the best of the bad option. I mean, not best of the bad options. Actually, that's not true. That was just reflexively saying that. Best of the options on the table. I agree. I mean, he's an anti-seed oils guy, right? Like, what more could you ask for, JD Vance? But like in seriousness, though, like, his background's a little weird, right? He used to be like the Never Trumper guy, and my understanding, although I've never read it, is that Hillbilly Elegy is actually not super sympathetic to rural people. Although, his personal views on that seem to have changed over time.
Yeah,
and like I don't think that's actually necessarily a bad thing or anything like that. It's a hell of a lot. I guess I just fall back to it's a hell of a lot better than like Kristi Noem or
yes.
I don't know who was the North Dakota guy. I don't even know anything about that guy, but that they were kept talking about a lot. Brugum or something like that.
Oh, Burgum.
He looks great though.
Oh, does he?
I don't know anything about him. Look at the people put his picture next to George Washington, and he looks just like him.
Now,
that is pretty cool. All right, I'll admit that.
Before he was in politics, I knew about the book Hillbilly Elegy, but I never read it. So, but the excerpts that I saw back then kind of biased me against JD Vance, because I marked him down as a hick lib, and I don't know if he is a hick lib or not. I obviously now he is into the dissident rights stuff or whatever, but like that was how I marked him down.
Yeah, because that's the same thing from the like excerpts that I saw, and that was like an Oprah book club book, right? Am I remembering that right? Yeah.
The way the book was kind of marketed or shown out was basically this was after Trump won. People were pissed off at the rednecks, and they wanted something. They wanted someone from Redneck World to say, like, give them a way to meditate on the lesser qualities of rednecks. Well, that's how it was laid out.
The book came out before it came out like in the primary season. You might have been right about the undercurrent there, but like at the time the book came out, Trump was a quote unquote joke candidate. Everybody thought he was going to lose, and it was a big. I think I kind of disagree with you. I think there wasn't the white hot hatred that they developed for us after the 2016 election. And probably if the book popped off in like 2017, he would have gotten in trouble for not being mean enough to his family. Does that make sense? As for him being a never Trump guy in 2016.
By the way, people may forget Trump was a joke when Manafort was his campaign guy.
Trans Carmen said, if Trump Vance can we get Merrick to pronounce elegy correctly. This is one of those things where it's like, this is a word that I've read and I've never had a reason to say it out loud ever.
It's a really good New Order song.
Sorry, yeah, so Hillbilly Elegy, right? Elegy with the J sound. All right, I'll keep that in mind. It doesn't really matter that he was a never Trump guy. I mean, obviously that's not good points for loyalty, but on the other hand, Trump has a habit of promoting people who kiss his ass but backstab him and or are incompetent. Like if he's a guy who's good at politics, him being against Trump in 2016 doesn't matter. On the other hand, it's not also not a great point for you. Like if something happened and Trump couldn't serve out his term if he won, what would you do? How committed are you to these ideas because you were against them in 2016? But again, there's nobody who was on the table that you could point to say, okay, this would have been the one to go with. Like who would that have been? Rubio? I mean, Glenn Youngkin has been very effective as a governor of Virginia, but as a governor of a blue state, and his style and what he does is a lot different than Trump. That's why he won. If you ran a Trump guy in Virginia in that gubernatorial election, he would have lost. So I think you go with what you got, and I don't think it's a bad pick by any means. I'm pleasantly surprised. I was afraid that he was going to pick somebody like Kristi Noem or some other non-entity and just roll with it, and that would have been disastrous. I mean, that happened. They convinced him to take Pence back in 2016, and look how that turned out.
Yeah, Vance is he's certainly had some kind of life. He's kind of got the Bill Clinton thing of, Bill Clinton was out of the trailer park and then on to Oxford. Vance was enlisted in the Marine Corps and, ended up, basically at the sort of the heights of sort of the elite professional world. He was these like rich people jobs, like venture capital or whatever the hell these people do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. He the McKinsey guy. It was something like that. I gotta Google that now.
In 2016, Vance moved to Sidley Austin. Let's see. After law school, he worked for John Cornyn, clerked for U.S. District Court judge, entered private practice for Sidley Austin, which is like, I understand, it's one of these super elite things. Like that's where like Obama was. It's like
yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah.
Well, let's. This is a great comment to segue into. And this is Second City Bureaucrat. This is a paraphrase that he said when someone's views evolve in the leftward direction, like Obama and gay marriage, they're doing it for craven, cynical reasons. When people like G.D. Vance come to the right, they're doing it, and he says out of authenticity. But no, you're doing it because you think that's how you can get power.
Well, you should. I mean,
right. But I mean, that's a good thing. Like you say, well, you know what? If I go in the opposite direction that everybody's pushing me, there's space here for me to carve out something for myself. I can use these ideas to become powerful, and that is how politicians operate 99 times out of 100, and that's not a bad thing.
How you should operate. If a politician has strong political opinions, that's like a drug dealer with a coke habit.
No. No. Come on. This is how
I feel.
Yeah.
It is not your job as a politician to trust me. I've read the I've read Evil or whatever.
Yeah, that's true, but like I don't know what you're going for, Merrick, but like I kind of do the Via Media thing. Like there's boundaries within which you operate based on your personal belief, and where you fall within those boundaries is due to the reasons you mentioned, Bog Beef, like things having to get done, the people you're representing, things of that nature. But there are certain people whose boundaries encompass the entire spectrum because they have no beliefs, but that I don't know whether that's optimal or not. I don't know. What were you going to say on this, Merrick?
I was going to say that the true, we're talking about the great men of history, the truly great men. It's both. They do have these very strong beliefs, and they are talented enough to project them and force them on the world. Yeah, and there are really great administrator types and people who are just, yeah, we'll be nice and say cynical about it, and they can be extremely effective too. But I do not like the idea that, oh well, the Saul Alinsky, oh well, everybody should, you blah blah blah. No, that's bullshit. Like that. I think you can look at American history in the last like 50 or 60 years and just debunk that pretty much immediately. Like these are true believers.
I don't know. I agree with this. You have to be able, on some level, even if it's just on one major theme, inspire people to something, right? Like that. Maybe I'm too naive here, but I think that is part of it. It's like, I'm trying to think of like a good example of this. Like, let's take like morality out of it and just look at like basic effectiveness, right? And I don't know, maybe some people will disagree with this, but I think of like Mussolini right away, right? Like that guy was a communist and like evolved to create fascism. But I mean, Mussolini certainly came across as believing in the greatness of Italy, right? Like that. I mean, the guy restarted the calendar, you know what I mean? And like just was the Roman iconography and everything. He believed in something. There was this concept of creating this great state and great community for the Italian people. And again, I'm not getting into right or wrong here. He actually may have been ambivalent about whether communism or later he may have thought was the correct vehicle to do that. And then fascism became the like superior one. But he still had that sort of underlying belief in the concept of like the Italian people, right? Or, Stalin, similar thing, I think, like obviously Stalin was obviously very interested in power for himself, but that's not, as Bog Beef would say, a bad thing. He had some kind of belief about like the greatness of Greater Russia. Like he would have just have had to. I can't believe that he was totally ambivalent on that. You know what I mean? Does this all make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And let me use 2 American examples.
Yeah, well, go ahead, but you understand, I am going to offer a counterpoint to this at some point.
Do you think Abraham Lincoln, do you think FDR, that they were men who did not have strongly, deeply held political ideas? I mean, in FDR's case, it's almost obvious because he did things, especially later, towards the end of his reign, that would be counterproductive for someone simply trying to cynically move the levers of power. He did dumb true believer stuff, and Lincoln was the same way. So you can do what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying that to be a really, really powerful, be a great man of history, you got to have both. You got to have both. There's no argument about it.
Okay, so all right, counterpoint here, and I understand. I do have a what some people would see as a particularly soulless view of this, but I don't believe it's bad, wrong, soulless, cynical, this kind of thing. I think of it as like a when I see a leader who a politician rather now there's different roles people have in society. Like you see people that say like their primary thing, you see people like, well, I'm a politics guy, I'm super interested in politics, but my main concern is like people are too fat or they're not religious enough or something. You shouldn't be a politician. You should be a preacher or a diet coach or something, in my opinion. But let's go. So this first, by the way, we're using examples of all people who were wildly successful, who by the way, and we're talking about Mussolini, Mussolini inherited a family business his dad ran a communist newspaper, and that's like how they made money and stuff. So yeah, he definitely could have been fascist all the time or whatever.
He was a red diaper baby.
Yeah. His parents were not only communists, but like they paid the bills with a communist with these newsletters.
They must have been really early adopters.
Yeah.
Go
ahead. Yeah, you go, Bogby.
It's about Mussolini. You go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like that. I mean, imagine coping and seething people in like Brooklyn are right now, that like knowing that somebody was getting rich off a communist newspaper, like in that era. There was no podcasting back then. Like you could, because I feel like you never, like the people that were like doing like DSA stuff in like the newsletter era were not getting rich. It took podcasting to make that happen.
I just looked it up. So he was born in 1883, and yet his father was a socialist, a revolutionary socialist. You know, to be a revolutionary socialist in 1883, that's like being a VC founder. You got in on the ground floor of that. That's funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah, maybe it's suspect that I do, but anyway. So this thing. This thing about like being a politician that has sort of strong political opinions. I mean, I think of this like a who's that point guard that played for the him and Durant were the big duo with the Westbrook. I think of that as like a point guard who likes to shoot. That's not your job. I see you as you're the orchestra coordinator. Your job is to, like a general coordinates the violence. You coordinate, and you are taking it's like a CEO. A CEO is working on behalf of, one day the CEO, he's going to work there, one day he's going to be gone. But while he's
yeah,
there,
but all right, I'm gonna count. But those are like actually the crappiest CEOs. Like those are the ones that get brought in like after something's already a public company. The guys that are like that you remember are the guys that founded the companies and just found a way to maintain power even after they had to deal with like shithead. Sorry, we don't curse on the show. Venture capitalists and shareholders and crap like that. You know what I mean? They arrange things in such a way to maintain their own personal power.
Like the CEO of Costco telling his successor that he'll kill him if he raises the price of the hot dog.
Right, or just the fact that guy was there forever. If you think about the tech stuff, it's like Steve Jobs, and you know what I mean. Like that's who people remember. It's like Tim Cook is just an administrator. There are counterexamples. Ballmer made a huge impact at Microsoft, obviously richer than Bill Gates now, right? But I think he was also really, really early in Microsoft, even though he didn't found it. So I think he was like a true believer guy. He wasn't just some guy that was hired to come in and manage the company, although I'm open to being fact checked on that.
Well, I'll leave it at this, at the sort of the strongest version of my side of this argument. The strong, noble version of what I'm saying is best expressed in the mandate of heaven, which is that if you are representing people and you are the most perfect coordinator of their interests and stuff, suddenly magic happens. You suddenly the seas part, and guys who don't have all this backing and all this and all that, well, they can't seem to lose. They just keep winning and winning, and it's clearly not them. And what that is what they're doing is like a great symphony coordinator, like a great general. They're or like a watchmaker. They're just sort of all these people's thoughts and hopes and interests and dreams. You are coordinating into a symphony of beautiful violence. And it runs like a clock, and it's this wonderful machine that's not you. You're just an instrument of their hopes and dreams and desires. That's I think the best argument I could make for it. Sure, perhaps the truth lies somewhere in the middle, but that's what I believe. All right,
we can all agree having politicians in charge who actually care about the country. And I don't mean that in a touchy-feely way, but like they have a vested interest in the American. I hate saying the American people because that's a fake term now. That just means like everybody who lives within the border. Like no, the actual American citizens of the United States. If you care about them, that would put you above a lot of politicians, like, because you'll make decisions that will see America continue beyond the 21st century. And like right now, the course we're on, that's not going to happen. And I mean, literally, like there won't be a United States in 2100, but there might not be an American people in 2100. That is actually on the table, and that's one of the things that Vance does talk about. And if he really believes that, then hey, you made a pretty good choice. However, he's a politician, and they lie to people. You know, they lie to people as a job. So you don't know. You'll see. You'll find out in 2028 if it was a good pick or not.
Steve Ballmer mentioned I have to do my short Steve Ballmer pick thing because if you've never heard it, I think it's important. This is something a lot of guys you wonder about when you start lifting weights and stuff. You hear this stuff about the people's body types, like the mesomorph, the ectomorph, and all this stuff, and you wonder if it's really true or not. Like, what does that mean? Like, they'll say like, well, you have to have certain genetics to win Mr. Olympia and stuff like that. Well, the proof is Ballmer. Steve Ballmer is what happens if you have Mr. Olympia genetics and you're a computer programmer or whatever the hell he is. Ballmer has the most perfect, he's like 6'5", but he's not skinny 6'5". He is down with the thickness. You know what I mean? Like he's probably got wrists, the size of 2-liter Coke bottles. Ballmer, like, if he wanted to be Mr. Olympia, he could be. Thank you. That's what it means to be a genetic freak that doesn't work out, because this is one of those things like, oh, well, every person you say is genetic, every person people say is genetic freak also happens to do tons of steroids and stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's just because the way it works. But that's what it looks like if you didn't work out, but you were a genetic freak.
Well, also, the exceedingly positive response to steroids is also a genetic trait, right? Not everybody responds the same way. By the way, just some interesting stuff about Ballmer. He came from not a whole lot. He first in his family to go to college. Parents were like Jewish immigrants. The highest they got was like a manager at Ford in Detroit. Worked his way into Harvard. He was the 30th employee at Microsoft. He was hired in 1980. So I was right. He was a very, very early guy. But he was actually essentially the company's first business focused employee. He's not a programmer. So he was the first ever business manager, essentially non-tech guy to work for Microsoft.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. There was a minor story this past year where some dude on whatever one of these shows about being gay, Drag Race or Queer Eye or whatever, the guy that runs the show is a gay guy, but he's one of these yoked out gay guys, right? So he's like Mr. Fabulous, right? So he's he's got all these he sort of acts like a woman basically, but he's huge and jacked. And so what happened, he would sort of, as the manager or whatever, he would, chew out people. Hey, your light was late. This set doesn't look good and stuff like that. But these women would be scared to death because even though this guy considers these women a peer, he lives in a woman's world. He's like a hairdresser or something like that. He's also this big steroided out guy. So they found it they found it kind of scary, which is understandable. Same thing. One time Ballmer does the keynote for Microsoft, and instead of being this inspiring tech speech, with a geek up there, people are sort of terrified because it's this giant gorilla that's
screaming
yelling
about developers.
Yeah. just being huge, it changes the setting. This is why this is where the gentle giants come from. Gentle giants act like that because they're very worried about scaring the hose because they're large. They're people that sort of are tuned into their own sort of physical imposingness. Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the main story.
All right. Should I read the news article just for posterity's sake.
Sure.
Butler, Pennsylvania. Former President Donald Trump was the target of an assassination attempt on Saturday at a Pennsylvania rally, days before he was to accept the Republican nomination for a third time. A barrage of gunfire set off panic, and a bloody Trump, who was shot in the ear, was surrounded by Secret Service and hurried to his SUV as he pumped his fist in a show of defiance.
I'm gonna play a clip.
Come on. Do it. Do it.
It's not that relevant. I just love that clip. Sorry. Yeah. Continue.
I mean, no, that's the story. If you haven't been living under a rock, you know about this. Here's the photo that's going to win a Pulitzer Prize and going to be in everybody's history book someday, whether for good or ill. It's not for us to say yet. Well, how do we want to start talking about this?
Start off with what you told us before we went on the air. Go ahead, Fredo.
I was going to say before, I know you guys want to get into the real technical aspects of this. I just want to say before we get into that, the presence of mind that he had to immediately stand up and do the fist pump and rile up the crowd, that can't be taught. Like that is, that's a very specific kind of guy. And like at my best, I think I like to think I'm that kind of guy who just kind of knows immediately the public perception of what he's doing and knows how to manipulate and control a crowd and can not only that, but can think fast enough to like not have to do so in a prepared way, like to be able to take any kind of situation that kind of just appears and turn it to his own advantage in that situation. That is a very extremely impressive skill. It is obviously one that we all knew that like Donald Trump had, but to be able to like do that still after a bullet just whizzed past your head, that's an even more extreme example than we may have like even assumed he had in him.
I'll be honest with you, and here's my struggles as your moment. Yeah, I didn't think this is the kind of guy that he was. I thought he was a rich guy hanging out the pool, banging supermodels, stuff like that. I didn't think that he'd get shot in the ear, stand up, and like he stopped the Secret Service from pulling him off the stage. First, like, I need to put my shoes on first. And then after he did that, he said, wait. He made the whole pile of agents stop while he raised his fist up into the air and yelled, fight, fight, to the people with the crowd. And when asked about it afterwards, he said, when the shots rang out, the people in the crowd didn't like run away. They stayed there. If you watch, there's a 4-minute long video that stitches together all the different cell phone and broadcast videos that should give you like a timeline of what happened. People were there during an active shooting event where one guy died in the crowd and another person was wounded. They didn't run away. They were all watching to see if the president was still alive. And when he got up, they started cheering and chanting. They didn't know if there was still a guy on the roof with a gun who was going to start blasting at them. That's what they cared about. And he said something like they were that brave for me, so I had to say something to them. Yeah, that is some level of personal courage that every man thinks about. I mean, we've joked about it before. Like, how many times in your life have you thought about being in this situation and imagine, like, what would I do? Well, now you know what he would do, and that it might not matter in politics anymore, but it matters on the level of being a man, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna toot my own horn here. I forgot I said this. Someone sent me this on Twitter the other day. They said, I didn't know what a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, who knows how long ago, I was talking about like and this was under the conditions of like who should Trump pick under his vice president, stuff like that. And I said he should pick someone who worries. And you could take someone like Eric Prince or whatever, who's obviously someone who worries. Eric Prince is not like he's a guy you could tell. You look at his face, he's a guy that worries about a lot. And I said, Trump, it's good and it's bad, doesn't worry about anything. You could look at, I was, they say, oh, there's a new case against you. There's new this or there's new that. He's never worried. It's impossible for him to worry. And they said, yeah, I didn't know what you were talking about till the shooting or whatever. And I was like, I'm thinking, yeah, that's him. I wonder if some of his, if people bring up the WWE, I wonder if, Trump has got some the only people I've ever seen have to do this semi regularly, not getting shot is kind of next level, but people do die on wrestling television with some regularity. I don't know.
Yeah, Owen Hart. I was watching that pay-per-view. We didn't see it, but yeah, I was watching it when it happened.
Yeah, they kept going on, and like if you break somebody's neck in a wrestling move or whatever, you just keep going and you kind of all that kind of stuff. They have to kind of do this sort of semi-professionally. I don't know if that background helped him or not. But yeah. So we, the main, now we get into all this sort of all this weird stuff. So first off, I would just ignore everything the left is doing. I mean, the left is they're, conspiracy theories, and
they're trying to negate that thing that I just said earlier. They're trying to negate that. They want to take that away because it's bad to have your candidate be this guy who sniffs little girls and he poops himself and he's incoherent, and then the other guy takes a bullet to the ear and then stands up and like Critical Save says, emote after a crazy moment like a gamer, like a true gamer. Yeah, that's bad for them.
You weren't there at the public pool with Corn Pop.
Fair enough.
Public pool is now safe because of but yeah. So I mean, I would like, and honestly, like most of them, I mean, I could show you like stuff like they don't even believe that. They're just
yes. It's like everything else. They don't have to believe the stuff they're saying. They just need something to say. Like you were having a conversation with your lib coworker or whatever, and you'd be like, "Wow, it's crazy how he got shot in the ear and he stood back up." Right? They need something to say back to that, and then like today they were literally making fun of the size of the bandage that he had on his ear. Like that's just something you say because when you don't have anything to say.
Honestly, the most funny and self-aware one I saw was it seemed to be like it was a TikTok, but somebody posted it on Twitter, and it was what appeared to be like a young liberal girl, and she did like a TikTok where she visits herself from the future, and she's like, we got a big problem. Like Donald Trump's about to be like president again. And then the current version of her goes like, how could that ever be possible? What, did something crazy happen? Like somebody shot at him. He survived, stood up and pumped his fist to the crowd, chanting for America with the flag behind him. and the future version of her said, yeah, actually exactly that. That's exactly what happened. That's the only one, like, to me that like showed a little bit of like, you know what I mean? Like for someone that I probably was not happy about that. Like, self-awareness.
Right after it happened, before that people got their story straight. It was like that, Chink Uger or whatever his name is, his nephew is a big time streamer. He's like, oh yeah, 2024 election's over. He just like, farmed a clip and, emoted like it was Fortnite after somebody shot him. Like, yeah, like how can you not see a moment like that happen? Just to be clear about the physics of what it was. This diagram has been floating around. It might not be 100% accurate. There's no way to know, but basically this is what happened. The guy was about to shoot him in the side, the side to the back of his head. Trump turned at the split second right before he shot, and he winged his ear instead. That is an insane. Like you could not possibly have a closer shave than that. It's an insane thing that happened. Like it would be an insane thing if it happened and you saw it happen in a World War II battle. And you're like, yeah, I remember when that guy got clipped in the ear right as he turned his head. This happened on television to the president of the United States. It's the odds are 1,000,000,000,000 to 1.
Yeah, and the shot was a layup, like what, 100 yards with a scope, lying down.
I don't know. Did he have a scope? Is it
Yeah.
been confirmed? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he had a scope, 100 yards. I mean, it's like it's the kind of shot where it's like, if I understand, he had some amount of background. It's just not that. I mean, especially lying down. Well, anyways. So yeah, so like don't buy it, like, so all that stuff about, here's the thing about, like, so why would they do that?
I'm
Why
sorry. I gotta say this before we move on from that
Sure.
specific thing. I forgot to mention this to make it crazier. If you watch the video and you carefully, right before the guy shoots, he says he's talking about Joe Biden's immigration policy. And what he's doing is he's pointing to a giant billboard-sized immigration chart to his right. And he points and he goes, "Look over there," and he turns his head to look at the chart right before the guy shoots at him. He even told people in an interview, he's like, "Oh yeah, that chart I was going over saved my life." So not only did he avoid death by a razor's margin, it happened because he was looking at a chart of illegal immigration.
Yeah.
That is the fun. If you wrote this into a story, people would accuse you of being insane.
Real life is always crazier than fiction.
Noticing save lives.
But I just want to say about, so the liberal thing. So like, why would they do this? Why would they make up this stuff? Well, so like, look around, and I'm not going to say anything against these people. People have, I know people that are like conservative and they're not going to support Trump because of COVID, or look around people. There's a lot of people that are, I don't know if they're true or whatever. They're saying like the RNC, which we're going to talk about later, the RNC conference was so cringe. They're not going to vote for this. They're like, well, this is a personal insult, blah, blah, blah. Like, whatever your feelings about this kind of stuff, this kind of shit is not an option if you're a Democrat, man. Like, Democrat people generally either have jobs that directly rely on government funds or grants, or either NGO or this guy or this thing or this college or this bullshit.
Or just corporate jobs like that are still like reserved for those people. You work in HR, you know what I mean? Or you work for the diversity office. You know what I'm saying?
You're a female Secret Service officer.
Correct. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they don't have a choice. Like, so there's never going to be, like, if you live on welfare or you're a DEI officer, which, by the way, one of the last, oh man, the last two people that threatened the president, I posted on Twitter, and there was all this sort of speculation about, were they transgender, were they this, were they that? The last two people before all this stuff happened, I did a thread and I looked them up, and because I knew what the answer would be. They were like, one of them was a lady who had been a diversity training officer for the past 20 years. And the other one, the guy who said that, oh yeah, I remember, was the guy who tweeted that you may have to kill your family for, you may have to kill your family if they support Trump. Remember that guy?
Yeah.
I was, by the way, most of those that went viral, that's because I retweeted. I was doing that those like 3 or 4 days in a row or whatever. But yeah, the guy said you have to kill your family. So like, why would someone do that? That's so crazy. Was he a Satanist? Was he transgender? I looked it up, and like, he's got a tweet that says, if Donald Trump's elected, I'm gonna lose my job. And that's it. Like, there's this principle. I don't know. This is maybe kind of faux pas to talk about, but in college, a lot of kids will. One of my roommates was prescribed one of these things like Adderall, whatever, and we would be hard up for some beer money sometimes, and sometimes we would talk about it, or we would talk about flipping it to so we could afford beer to like kids as drug money, basically. And he did this once or twice, and then later on we were talking about this to somebody, and someone told him, they said, you should never do that. And he's like, why? He's like, we need beer money. He said, and he's like, I don't like taking this shit anyways. It winds me up. And they said, if you do that, if you sell someone a, a drug, they will call you for it basically forever. Like no matter how many times they call you and you don't answer, or you tell them I don't have this anymore, I don't not prescribe this anymore, I don't whatever. You sort of like you have wired like addiction hooks up into like survival stuff. And so from now to eternity, this person will, I need to survive. I need this drug. I got to call this guy. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. These like 2 or 3 people, he sold like $20 worth of stuff so we could buy a pony keg of Keystone for, would call him like every other week for years. And he never had any. And this is what happens when you get wired into survival of this kind of shit. These people, they don't have another choice. That all they have is the Democrat Party. There is no thing where they're like, oh, well, this guy, oh, did you see the DNC? I found that really insulting. You know, I'm not going to vote for them anymore. Even though like my, you know, I get this what do they call when they get the rent paid by the government?
Well, Section 8.
Section 8 or the rent control, which is now being promised and stuff. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought this up because this dovetails nicely into exactly one of the things I wanted to talk about that I didn't see anybody else bring up. There's a lot of hot takes floating around. I almost tweeted this, but I said, you know what, save it, because anytime you have a thought that takes more than one tweet, it's usually bad times if you try to put it down, because you're just going to have to cut stuff out of it. But it's not a complicated thought. It's like, so here was one of the reactions to Trump nearly getting his brains blown out on live television, was that, well, like the election's over, he's going to win now. And both Democrats and Republicans said this. It was kind of a meme right after the shooting, and some people are still saying it now. I've seen people in real life who think that the election's over, and let me tell you, it's not over. It is. I understand the error in thinking here, because as you were just pointing out, if you don't think like a ward of the state, you won't understand what's going on. If your livelihood rests on whether or not a political party is in power, you are incapable of the kind of romanticism that people are imagining when they say, well, he's got to win now. Because you got to have a degree of freedom in your political choices to behave that way. And that does not exist in wide swaths of the population anymore.
That's true. And I agree with you. I'll give like one counterfactual, I don't know if that's the right word here, example of a vibe shift that I don't think you would have seen 2 weeks ago. So I don't know. It's kind of like random that I happen to see this. You guys are familiar with Tenacious D?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a band, Jack Black and Kyle Gass is the other guy. So they were playing, I think it was yesterday. Jack Black, liberal guy, Hollywood actor, whole nine yards.
Yeah, he was cutting commercials for Biden like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So they're playing a concert. It's Kyle Gass's birthday. These guys have been friends now and touring together for, I don't know, 20 years, probably more. They bring out a birthday cake with candles on it. This guy, Kyle Gass, blows out the candles and says into the microphone that his birthday wish was that next time the shooter doesn't miss.
And he says Trump. He didn't say that the shooter doesn't miss. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The shooter doesn't miss Trump. He was explicit about that. Thank you. What happens is the next day, Jack Black cancels the entire rest of their tour and basically, throws Kyle Gass under the bus. Yeah. I don't think that would have happened 2 weeks ago. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely not. Like they are scared for the first time in a very, very long time. People are getting shit canned from jobs big and small for saying what he said, which is really as much as I don't like seeing people get fired for takes, like you would have to be either stupid or insane to think that you can say that. That's like the one thing that you've never been able to say. People who made jokes about doing that to the president or former president, you get a visit from the Secret Service. Like even in previous times when things were a lot more chill, if you made a joke about that, it happened to a lot of different content creators on the internet. You make a joke about that, the Secret Service will come and talk to you about it.
That was a big thing, like in George Bush era, I remember.
Yeah. I remember, yeah, I remember in the very beginning of the internet, one of the first like popular blogs. You probably remember. Do you remember Old Man Murray? Blog Beef? Maybe not.
No.
See, you're not a real gamer. They got a visit from the Secret Service for just posting a joke on their website about that. And like, this isn't in like 1999 or 2000 or whatever. So yeah, they don't joke around with that. You'd almost have to be a lib to think you could do that and not get in trouble. So I have a lot less sympathy. I know the old lady getting fired from Home Depot and stuff. You know better than to say that. I mean, everybody who's an adult with a functioning prefrontal cortex knows you can't say that. That's like the one thing you've never been allowed to say in our lifetimes. So yes, you're right. There is. I do not discount that there's a vibe shift. I don't even discount that this could cause him to win the election. I want to give you finish my black pill, and then we'll chase it down with the white pill. The black pill is the people who were saying, like, the day that happened, they were saying it was going to be a Mondale style landslide, that this is over, that he's going to 48 states, whatever. That is not, I know that's not going to happen. I mean, tell you that right now. If you believe that, go on the betting sites and you can make yourself a lot of money if that actually happens. And this is not a novel observation, we are a lot more polarized than we were in the past. People don't change their minds anymore. And part of the I laid out the reasoning for that. There are a lot of people who simply can't. Their lives depend on, a certain political party winning. So they just can't do that. They don't have the luxury of doing that. But why do people who have jobs in talking about politics, smart people with PhDs, believe this? And my personal accusation is that they imagine like a ghost army of mid 20th century people in this country. Like they imagine that this is the country it was in 1960. Because if this happened in 1960, they would be right. This would now be a landslide. The guy who got shot and did all that stuff, he would win 48 states. That is what would happen. Because at that point in time, you did not have large swaths of the population who were directly benefiting. And the people who did, they were numerically a smaller amount of people. And they also, didn't have massive operations to encourage them to vote. There was nobody going into the ghetto and saying like, hey, by the way, we really need your input on this. Here's some papers. I really need you to weigh in on who should be the commander in chief of the country. They just didn't do that. I think they would have if they had the technology and that's where the ideology was at. But it wasn't. So you could have had that kind of thing. The people still imagine the shade of the old United States because it's a comforting idea that it's still the same country, that there are still people, who are working at the water filtration plant and a nuclear power plant who were like these smart, mid-century driven, guys, let's face it. But they're not there anymore. Those people are all old and retired. As late as 1980, this would have been true probably, but since then it's not. And if you believe this, you should put aside those fantasies because they're not coming to save you because they're gone. They have been for a long time. Now here's the white pill. Not completely gone. There are demographics in the United States that this will appeal to. There are still people who will view this very we'll put it nice romantically. They will see what happened and how he reacted to it, and the reactions of everybody else, and they will change their minds, and that's the vibe shift. But we're talking a fraction of the population. That's all you need an election to win, but it's not going to be a sea change on like for everybody in the country. That's just my view.
Yeah. So, Gringo Texan brings up a good point. Says, "Out in America, our elections are decided by tens of thousands of votes." You're both kind of saying the same thing there. It's sort of like the pro side there is, you know, Trump landslide wins a lot of states or whatever. But you know, like the thing is that there's a very small, yet like our election system is very I can't think of the right word, but I'll say efficient, but basically it means it's like it's always 50-49 or whatever. That's true, but like you know, things like there's massive amount of the states that aren't really in play anymore, etc. I want to
in the past, this is easy to verify. In the past, you could become president by being awesome, personally brave and awesome in a war, like Andrew Jackson, William Henry Harrison. I mean, I could go as late as like Eisenhower or even Kennedy. You could like make a political career out of doing those things. That's all stuff that does anybody really believe that now? We certainly haven't been acting like it. The last two guys who ran, who were like legitimate war veterans who saw active combat, got destroyed.
My mind always goes to Katie Hobbs. Part of me can just never believe that someone like Katie Hobbs won the governor race in Arizona. It's just I just can't accept it. I'm like the way that, like, you know, Lincoln Project is about Trump or whatever. You're like, you know, this is not our country, blah, blah. I'm like, I can't accept it. Okay. I want to talk about, one of the big things that everyone, of course, like to speculate on, which is the, is this a conspiracy? Was this did they plan to have Trump killed? At which, I as of today, I mean, you could see people like Tucker Carlson and Eric Prince and Trump's son are discussing this in forum, whatever. You saw something on television.
There was an interview. CNN had this guy who was who's an Army sniper, and he's on there now. I don't know the guy, so an expert can say whatever they want. But he had it was like a 10-minute long segment, and he's talking about all the f ups that had to happen for this guy to be. He was like say like 150 yards away from President Trump on a building
in plain sight too. There was no like he had no cover or anything. Yeah.
Well, if you look at the video that stitches together the 2.5 minutes before the shooting and then the 2.5 minutes after, police were informed about the guy's presence 2 minutes before he finally shot at President Trump. Meaning, there were police on the ground. I know there've been a lot of rumors about a cop seeing him on a ladder, whatever, blah, blah. We know for a fact the cops were informed about this 2 minutes before he shot. The sniper says, for all the things that have gone wrong, and he says that I have been involved in hundreds of the situations in Iraq and Afghanistan protecting people as a sniper, like I assume as a contractor. He said, to me, this makes it seem hard to believe that this is an accident. And the anchor like flips out, and she you mean it was just like this was a setup? And he kind of like, I'm not saying anything, but like, yeah, that's what he said. And a lot of people feel the same way. Either the Secret Service is so insanely inept that nobody who they protect is safe, or somebody accidentally on purpose let a guy shoot the president. Those are the only two options on the table. There is nothing else. Either the Secret Service effed up so bad that the organization needs to be changed fundamentally from this moment forward, or someone tried to kill Donald Trump, who was not just that kid on the roof. Isn't
that like all mass shootings though? Like you find out like the FBI knew about this person. Like, mass shootings are a little different because usually you'll find out that like the FBI was like encouraging him to do stuff, or at least have been talking to him on the internet or whatever. But
Yeah.
I feel like it's like a common pattern.
Yeah. And there are lots of rumors. Now, I don't mean rumors isn't like I saw this on Twitter, but news outlets saying the latest one is that he was spotted carrying a ladder like a half an hour before the shooting. He was seen by a lot of people, and it was reported, and nobody did anything about it. And the big question is, why wasn't somebody already on that roof, which was one of the most obvious points where somebody might try to shoot at the president. We know also that they saw him before the shooting. You can see that in the reaction video of I don't know if they're police or Secret Service snipers on the roof. They saw him. They were looking at him before he shot. There were rumors that the Secret Service has a no shoot first policy.
Yeah.
Is that actually true? Did we ever confirm if that's true or not?
Right. So I was highly interested in this the day of and day after, until I read this. And this is from Susan Crabtree, who is a White House and national political correspondent with Real Clear Politics. The Hill roll call was with the Washington Examiner, etc. She did a series of interviews, and I was very interested in all this until I read this from her rather engaging reporting. Until I saw this. It said this. A source within the Secret Service community tells Real Clear Politics that the agency rules of engagement in this situation are to wait until the president is fired upon to return fire. Okay, so I read that and I posted, I said, all right, I have two choices. Like, and I always, this is one of the problems about coming from the poker world, is that you assign probabilities to things that like in politics you shouldn't, because there's so much in general life, you should assume like sort of basic probabilities of things like, what's more likely, this and that. And politics is like, there's so much incentive for things to be lies or bullshit that you shouldn't do that. But nonetheless, I'm doomed to do that. So I read that and I was like, okay, so what's more likely? That the Secret Service has a policy to give you one on the house, right? Right? Like
yeah.
Yeah.
Handicap, like in golf, right? Yeah.
Right, sporting. Or like it is more likely I'm having a psychiatric event. Something's gone wrong, a nerve got crossed up, maybe I was abused. Who knows? It's more likely that. And so I was like, I'm not going to think about this anymore. There's no point. And I looked at I did a thread about this, and that's what I said. And I looked at the replies, and people were taking the entirely credible reporting we got from a very credible reporter, and they were working logical situations from that point and ending up in the most retarded places. Because how can you start with that and not end up in just the most retarded logic traps and just bizarro land possible? And so I was like, I'm done. Why should I think about this anymore? Furthermore, here's another reason why you should not have to think about this. It's not 1995 anymore. You're not going to produce a report and some kind of moderate source is going to come from the middle and say, you weren't doing your job right, lady who runs the Secret Service. You're putting presidents in danger. I don't care what political party they are. That's not right to do. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. You can win the presidency and you could fire her, or you could just keep going on. You could try to beef up your own he could try to beef up his own personal security or whatever. You can win or you can die. That's how this works. So what's the point? What's the point even speculating on it? What are you going to do? It's not going to help you. You can't Donald Trump can't fire her. She's probably going to get promoted. They'll make her the Secretary of State. We don't live in that world anymore.
So
good.
well, okay. Now, first we'll start with the things that Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle have said herself. So these are things that are not in contention. This is what she says on the record about why there wasn't anybody guarding the rooftop where the guy came within a hair's breadth of murdering the president on live television. That building in particular had a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof, she said. And and so, the decision, I'm sorry. The decision was made to secure the building from the inside. There were Secret Service agents inside the building, but not on top of the roof because the roof was too sloped. I don't know if you've seen the video of the where the guy shot from.
It's like a regular roof.
Yeah, it's not sloped. You could do whatever. You could walk across it very easily. It's barely sloped. I said earlier today, probably even she's not stupid enough to believe that. You just have to have something that you can say that's not, I'm just a fucking idiot. I have the most important job in the world and I don't know what I'm doing. But also, it's disappointing that you're that bad at lying because, that's not a valid excuse for why you let the president get shot in the head. That's a valid excuse if you're the manager at not even at Costco. Costco runs a tighter ship than that. If you're the manager at the dollar store and you're explaining why the loss prevention numbers have been up. Well, it's it's a sloped roof and swamp gas and stuff. You could say that dumb shit because it's pretty low stakes. But when you're protecting the president of the United States, you can't use that excuse. I came up with on the spot a better excuse, and it was just, hey, we didn't want to accidentally shoot a civilian or a local police officer. We weren't sure who he was, so the agents didn't pull the trigger before he fired.
It's like
that's a bad excuse, but that's not a terrible excuse. And I have zero experience in protecting people. I've just played a lot of Counter-Strike.
I told my ex-wife, I was bitten by a snake, and this nice lady came to suck out the poison.
Exactly. Thank God the guy wasn't a gamer, because we'd be having a totally different discussion if that guy had been an entry fragger in 1.6 or go.
Yeah,
it would be over right now. It'd be Nikki Haley would be wearing a tiara at the RNC.
Oh man, this part is it's not black pill, it's just reality. You got to win. That's all that matters. Look, the guy that shot Reagan was treated with kid gloves. By the way, Trump protested Hinckley being released. You can read Hinckley's interviews with Playboy or whatever, and they didn't mind it. It didn't matter.
What year was Hinckley released? Roughly, you guys, because I don't remember exactly.
It was pretty damn. It wasn't Biden's presidency.
2015, 16, 17.
Oh, is it that early? Okay.
Yeah, because it was before. What I was trying to figure out was that before Trump really got. I mean, he was in politics, but it was before he was the Republican candidate or anything, right? When he was protesting that, yeah.
And here's the why do people do this? It's the same reason every single time. They want to be famous. That's it. And people really focus on Hinckley, he was he was noodle, he's out of his noodle. He thought that this would impress Jodie Foster. Foster
in his defense, have you seen Maverick?
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
So Jodie Foster was just in the biggest movie in the world. She was famous, super famous at that moment. She was the most famous woman in the world at that moment. Silence of the Lambs just came out.
She was a kid. This is kind of the weird part about it. Was it 15?
Well, hadn't Silence of the Lambs just came out?
Ooh, this is Taxi Driver is what he saw her in.
Well, whatever. Regardless, she was this huge star, whatever. And you can look at all his musical stuff. I mean, he's doing all this very self-referential, avant-garde stuff. and you could look at his interviews. He wanted to be famous. He wanted to be famous. That was it. And, you know, he had a pretty easy life. They didn't make things difficult for him. You know, if he shot 4 people, one guy was paralyzed later died, you know, years later. But, you know, if he had shot 3 people in a quick stop, you know, he at least would have done some hard time. He never did hard time. He was adjudicated not guilty, by the way, not guilty. And
he just went to like a state mental hospital, right?
and they would have done the same thing. And that state mental hospital, there was like some caring for his mother and shit like that. Like he had an easy life. They would have done the same thing with this guy. And that's how it is. You can't reason with these people. You can't say, "Oh, you guys are going too far." You got to win. That's it.
We don't even really know why he did it. He didn't leave a note. The people who've been interviewed about him says that he was quiet and weird, and that he was always out of step with his peers. In his case, that meant he had like some conservative political views. But I saw the interview. One of his friends one of his high school peers said, he's like, you know, he didn't emphasize the part about where he was an outspoken conservative. He was like, he was always by himself. He was always away from everybody else. He was always separate. That's what I remember. And he said he was bullied, blah, blah, blah. But I think like the people are like, well, was he Republican because he voted in the primary or whatever? Well, I mean, the odds are it probably wasn't really political reasons that he did it. But even if they were, like, it wouldn't surprise me either way, because he's a weird loner contrarian. And if you've used Twitter, you're very well aware there's a certain type of personality who, like, they just want to disagree with everybody about everything. And yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me if he donated to if he donated to progressives and he was also voting in the primary and whatever. You know, he might have been a fascist one week and a radical communist the next week. Whatever, as long as it separated him from everybody else, as long as it gave him, you know, a reason to be. Or he did it to impress a girl, or, you know, he was brainwashed by a three-letter agent. We don't know. We're probably never going to know if it was a thing where he was encouraged to do it by three-letter agencies. They're definitely not going to. There's not going to be a church commission or something that finds that out. So just you pretty much assume that we're never going to know why he tried to do it.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
By the way, this Cheadle woman also made the executive decision to delete all the agency records from January 6th.
I think it was her personal text messages on and before January 6th. Yeah, but I mean, it's the same thing. She shouldn't have the job. There's the other issue of this is now we're moving away from stuff that's absolutely verified to stuff that was reported on by reputable news sources, but hasn't really been confirmed. And what we do know for sure that there was a Dr. Jill Biden event in Pittsburgh that pulled off some of his Secret Service detail that he normally had. We know for a fact he did not have the same detail he usually did, and it was reduced because of her visit. So there are people filling in who weren't his usual protection. Now, the reported but not confirmed thing that I saw was some of these people were not Secret Service agents. They worked for DHS. And that would make a lot of sense, because some of the people who were there were like, I mean, one of them's like a short, fat woman. And I've never seen that at a Secret Service. Like 3 of the Secret Service or whoever protection detail people were women, which is weird by itself. I've never seen that before. I didn't even know that was a thing until they almost killed them on television. At least 2 of them didn't do a very good job. They definitely didn't G.I. Jane it up. I don't know if this is out of the ordinary for the way the Secret Service does things in 2024. But I mean, if it is, that would also be something to look into. Why did he get the FUPA patrol instead of like 6'5" guys who can actually like? Here's the really ironic thing. Because they effed up either intentionally or unintentionally, so badly they let a shooter get in that spot. He was able to shoot at Trump. He didn't kill him, but he was close enough that he clipped his ear and, wounded him and caused him to bleed. For political purposes, that was the worst thing that could happen to people who hate Trump, because if the guy just shot and he didn't hit anybody, and we haven't even talked about the firefighter who was tragically killed. But like, if he didn't hit anybody, he just shot, this would have been a news story for a week and gone away. But he actually struck blood, which is a big deal. And then, because those Secret Service agents couldn't physically move Donald Trump, they were trying to get him off the stage. He didn't want to go. He wanted to put his shoes on, and he wanted to signal to the crowd that he was okay. They couldn't have done that if they had, a group of 6'5" guys who could have just like carried him off the stage. And because some of them were like tiny people, like 5'6" women, you could clearly see him pumping his fist to the crowd. Now that's bad, because you want your Secret Service agents to be like the same height or higher than the person they're guarding, so that if somebody shoots at them, that it hits them and not him. But like, all these F-ups actually have horribly backfired on them.
One of the guys that was shot by Hinckley was one of these people who's tasked with physically body blocking angles. Mm-hmm. His job was to block an angle, and he took one of the bullets. Of course.
Video.
You could look, like, if Reagan had said, "Hey, wait, let me tie my shoe," they picked his ass up and threw it in the car, which is your only job, by the way. If you're the guy you're the people around him, which was not the case we saw with the shooting. They were sitting there talking about, was the shooter down stuff. Well, what are you going to do? That bitch took out her Glock. What are you going to do? You going to cap him? No, you get him in the truck.
There was one point where the one woman on stage, after he'd already been shot, like, the president dropped his hat and she like bent down to pick up the hat for him and exposed his body to
what are you doing? Get him in the truck.
But they might not be Secret Service. They might just be DHS employees. And there's never any okay, there is one circumstance where maybe you could have women on your Secret Service detail. If you're guarding a woman who's like 5'5", yeah, you could probably do that. I mean, honestly, I don't think you should. I think that if it's someone important enough to have a Secret Service detail, you should have the best possible people guarding them. But you could see Dr. Jill Biden could have used some of those ladies on Saturday. They would have been fine. I don't know what she was doing, if she was like, awkwardly gesturing and saying dumb shit, but like, they could have been there and they could have handled that perfectly. Maybe some of the shooters and some of the the hot shots who were standing there watching her age could have been there with the president to rely on something other than the incompetence of a deformed freak to keep him alive.
Yeah, well, these kinds of by the way, I've been there when Greg Abbott was sort of doing an appearance, and they like, and it was the Texas Rangers that were doing his personal security, and it was really, I would say, over the top, but I got the impression that they were doing this as sort of like training or something like that. Like, they were going all the way to know how, make sure all the guys knew how to do it. And it was awesome to watch. It was a symphony. They had like right behind where he was going to be spending, an hour or two, they had the truck backed up to there. And it was surrounded by a line of Suburbans. They have all the guys there, and like, they're not, the whole plain clothes thing. They're not supposed to be like plain clothes to where you don't notice them, because they're not trying to actually blend in with the crowd, because if they did, that would be too late. You are like, the whole earpiece, it's supposed to be visible. You're supposed to see, oh man, there's a lot of these big guys around here everywhere. I had brought the pistol with me, but man, I'm not sure. The guys will kill me. I'm not sure I want to go through with this.
So when Kennedy was shot in '63, there's been this debate, and if you watch the JFK movie, they use that as evidence for conspiracy. Like, well, why didn't Oswald shoot him when he was coming towards him? It would have been an easier shot. Because President Kennedy and Vice President Johnson's cars had a bunch of giant Secret Service guys with not machine guns, but with rifles and submachine guns on their running boards, looking directly in his direction. Like, yeah, that would probably be a little intimidating. If it's one thing to shoot at somebody when he's moving away and your life's not going to be in danger at that moment. It's another to start blasting away to 12 guys who are probably like World War II vets who are very familiar with the operation of a firearm and taking a human life.
Yes, they're supposed to look ridiculous. This gets commented on a lot. They're like, these guys that they always have this huge like football pads, body armor underneath. Their earpiece is like obviously way too big, compared. Yes, it's supposed to. There's supposed to be a presence because they're not trying to truly blend in. Because when they did, it's too late. Okay.
Mike Pilcat just says something, a very funny term. I love it. He's a competency porn, and that's and just like porn, we're finding out it's not real. And this is a really bad thing for everybody in the country, not just like Donald Trump. Although I'd have to say I'm surprised people were acting like, well, we literally dodged a bullet. I'm glad that's in the past. No, it's not. There's going to be 4 more months to the election and 4 more years when he's president. Do you think this is the last time that they're going to do this? Maybe, but you know what else? Every crazy person in the country and every bad actor now knows morons are guarding the president of the United States, and it's pretty easy to get into position to do something that I would have thought on Friday you just couldn't do anymore. Like, anytime people would talk about this, we've said this on the show, but I would say, his life is in danger. And when I would say this to people in their day-to-day in real life conversation, they'd be like, well, yeah, with the rifles, I don't know how you do it, because it just seems like they have the presidents locked down so well now that you just can't do it like you could do it in 1963. Apparently not. Apparently it's open season. And that, just knowing that can make, we know objectively that someone trying to do this encourages other people to do it. Didn't 3 people shoot at Ford in pretty quick succession? He was president for he was president for a couple years, and he got shot at several times. Once they see they can do it, that encourages more people to try it. And I don't know if this lady's still going to be in charge of the Secret Service until the election. I don't know. I hope he's got Eric Prince on the line and Blackwater guys or something to watch him, because I certainly wouldn't trust them. This is crazy. I feel stupid to not have conceived that this is possible, that they would be incapable of protecting somebody that important. You just couldn't do it. It's one thing if there's a conspiracy and they did it on purpose, but if they just can't protect him, we're in a lot of trouble. Nobody's safe. It's going to be like the 19th century all over again, where heads of state get knocked off because they just literally cannot keep them safe. I don't know, man.
Well, this is one of the big issues with populism in general. I mean, you could sort of look at the history of populism going back to the Roman Republic. It's kind of the easy button to deal with populism. When you're one versus many, which is what populism really is. It's I'm going to take on an oligarchy as a singular loci. They shot Huey Long. They shot George Wallace. They stabbed Julius Caesar. They killed the Grok guy. They killed Saturninus. Yes.
I mean, I'm sorry, but this, I mentioned this before on Twitter, but man, I gotta say it again. It wasn't just that this guy and or whoever tried to kill him, because that's bad enough. What they wanted was 4K high definition video of his head exploding for everybody to see, to be passed around on, I guess Live Leak doesn't exist anymore, to be passed around and looked at, for everybody to see their political hero have his brain splattered out physically in front of them. And in every little piece of shit, purple and pink flagged person, would flash that GIF at you.
Yeah,
that's what they wanted. That's what they were robbed of, and why they've been. We did talk about this firefighter who died, literally protecting his family, threw his body in front of a bullet for his children and his wife, and he's the one that got his head. He was the one that was shot in the head and killed. And these loathsome little creatures like that guy Destiny and other people, like, they celebrate this the same way they celebrated the MAGA guy who got shot in 2020. Got shot in the back by some twisted freak who the marshals later killed. They celebrate that because they got robbed of what they really want, which is to rub it in your face that the people who buy them their hormone pills can do whatever they want to you, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's what they want, because they're such loathsome little creatures. And we were a fraction of an inch away from experiencing that. And we might still experience that. And all the talk about lowering the temperature and calming down, they didn't calm down. They're never going to calm down. They can't. There's no. I was talking earlier about the importance of not Fed posting when you're in a partnership like this with HSD guys. So I won't. But they're not going to calm down. That's not going to happen. They don't have the it's like not an essential part of their being to be able to do that. Thank you. That's all I got to say.
So people sent me, music videos and stuff, triumphant music videos, and I get it. It's a triumphant moment, but a man is dead, and yes, he's number 2 now. Ashley Babbitt would be number 1.
Yeah.
There's a good chance there will be more. And
she was protesting. She was doing something actively illegal and dangerous. I don't say it makes it justified, but she put herself in a dangerous position. This guy didn't. He didn't do anything. He went to a political rally with his family to just to see somebody that he liked speak. He didn't do anything other than spend his entire life protecting people. And so the fact that he was killed is horribly tragic. The fact that people joke about it, you have to be some real human scum to do that.
Yeah, but I would tell people, if you want to react to Destiny, block him and then take a picture of whatever he said or whatever, because he's making a lot of money off being a heel right now.
But it's a stupid decision, because he was on Piers Morgan and stuff, and I don't think that he's going to continue to be that kind of figure. He'll be an internet lolcow, which, whatever. Maybe
okay. Yeah. But, I just think about wrestling and think about heels and think about that he profits. There's been weeks where I've made like $100 or something from Twitter, and I really have never made a viral tweet that has gotten millions of views ever. My tweets were 2,000. I made $100. You think about how much money he's making. Like if he posts, "Oh, I'm glad the guy did," blah blah. He's making a lot of money. Now I saw there was some Elon was talking about pulling that. If so, he'll just take the act somewhere else. But he is definitely
he's on this platform, same one we're on, right? Is he on Twitch?
Yeah, he is. But he's definitely making money off being a heel. And on Twitter, people don't have to stick around nothing. They click around, they saw the tweet. You get money. So there you go. Okay, so this kind of leads me into my thoughts on the third subject of the night. People want us to talk about it, which is the arms.
Fredo, did you have anything you wanted to add about the assassination attempt?
No, I got my stuff in.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
Okay, RNC thing, which is still going on again tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
A week, right?
I don't know. I'm not gonna watch it.
Me neither.
And I know a lot of people watched it, and they're some people are more upset than others. There's obviously the stage is full of cringe. It's not a celebration of masculinity and Christianity and the high points of Western civilization. Yeah, it's not. And I mean, my opinion, I'm not gonna tell anybody that how they're supposed to feel about things, but like look around, look at all the countries in the West and how difficult this road has been to try to get someone to do anything about some of these basic issues that are making our lives worse and worse every day. Primarily immigration, but that's really just everything else is kind of flows from that. Think about what your groceries cost and all this stuff. It's it's going to be a long, hard road. I mean, look at Ireland. In Ireland, their their guys are rioting on the streets, and you know they're doing what they can. None of us has been able to crack this. So I don't like this person. Are they speaking? Are they that speaking of this cringe thing or whatever? You know, I kind of roll with the punches on that stuff. Like I don't really that stuff doesn't really get me wound up. I don't really, uh, this woman Amber Rose. I mean, she's got like 3 million followers on Twitter. Who knows? Maybe they made a decision because of that. Maybe they made a decision because of all kinds of bad things, whatever. You know, it's not like we're on the cusp of victory and we can and my opinion and that we can start fine tuning things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where this is a big beautiful disaster that as long as as long as it keeps going forward, that's what I'm concerned about because yeah, it's all like if you focus in on anything, this person knows this person, this and this person doesn't represent this and this and this guy knows this and this person is the wrong ethnicity and stuff. Yeah, I mean yeah, it doesn't matter. Like we're not. Yeah, it's a big old disaster. And you know, I was commenting on Lomez today. He was saying that he was in my opinion, I'm not being aggressive, but he was kind of nitpicking the speech that this is a perfect example, nitpicking the speech that the Teamsters representative gave at the RMC. He said the Teamsters representative his message wasn't as right wing as he felt like he was talking too much about corporate fat cats and stuff and blah blah blah. Dude, go look at the replies to the Teamsters tweets about that. I mean, the left, the Democrats. This is a serious wound to them. You've taken one of their. This is like getting the Teamsters to endorse Trump. It's like when they put Baphomet in at the whatever the Milwaukee Capitol House. You've taken one of their sacred things and smashed it. They're pissed. They're angry about that shit. They don't care what he said about this or that. And by the way, I mean, it took a lot of effort to do that. Donald Trump spent weeks in talks with Teamsters about this. They jerked him around and he kept pushing for the rank and file and ignoring the things that the leadership was saying. And he got this endorsement.
Have people forgotten that's how one of the ways that how he won in 2016, but one of the tactics that he used, you know, obviously he talked about immigration in a way that nobody else was willing to. And that is what got him into the White House. However, he did other things to attack his political opponents. And one of them was it was easy when you were running against Hillary Clinton is to talk about how the white working class in America has gotten the shaft, and he put out a lot of commercials and made a lot of statements that appealed to that exact demographic, and he got rewarded for it in the Midwest and the Rust Belt. So, like, why would you blackpill about him having the Teamsters there? That's better than what he did in 2020, which was try to directly pander to people who were like very loyal. And that's the thing. This is not the year is not like 1965 or whatever. The Teamsters are not like a super loyal like a core part of the Democratic coalition anymore. Yeah, they're part of it, but you could make a deal with them. The things he tried to do in 2020 was targeting people that you simply are not going to peel away from the Democratic Party, and his base. It didn't go away, but like he enough eroded that he lost that election. Whether or not you think that there was a hanky panky happening, in Philadelphia or whatever, if he would have wrapped up those votes, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. And if he's doing that again, that's not a bad sign. I mean, if nothing comes of it,
no,
who
it's the best sign in a long time, right? Like it's the best sign of the convention, right? Because the other stuff we had been hearing were like the Amber Rose thing, and then going in, they screwed around with like all the evangelical delegates, right? Like with regard to the platform, like they didn't let them object, and I think they took all the abortion stuff out. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
So like actually the Teamsters was the smart thing to come out of the convention.
Well, then they had the Hindu do a Hindu prayer.
That doesn't. I mean, the Hindu prayer thing. I mean, that's almost like that's not at the same level as bad as the other ones that I mentioned. I would consider that's neutral.
These are all things that you're doing. It's like this is a kind of pandering, not to your base. That we've seen plenty of that. Why is this good news, and why Vance was, even if you don't think he's going to be an effective vice president, the fact that he picked this guy means this is going to be you can see a hint of his strategy. Perhaps he's going to go back to doing more of what he did in 2016. Maybe not. I don't know. We heard a lot of bad stuff before the convention about people who were advising him who have like straight up stupid ideas about the election that that could cause problems again. Some of the same idiots who advised him into the ground last time around. But like, these are two things that's saying, okay, maybe he's going to reverse what he did in 2020. And that's not to say like, yes, now we know this is going to celebrate. We know what his platform is going to be. You don't really, but this is a hint, and it's a positive hint. And I say as somebody who was pretty negative and blackpilled about what was going to happen. I think that, on the other hand, like the Amber Rose thing, it's stupid, and they shouldn't have her there, and all the arguments for having her there are bad. There's just someone like that shouldn't be speaking at a convention. That's who is the demographic being targeted? Who are you going for? Who's the Amber Rose vote? Does anybody want to take a crack at explaining that?
Thoughts?
I guess. I mean, they're not going to support him anyway.
Well, he's doing. What about the he could get the stripper vote with the so people that work in the service industry, they have always basically not paid taxes because they get paid in cash tips.
Right.
But people don't use cash like they used to anymore. They use credit card. And in the past, your average server or bartender or whatever, they would they'd go ahead and claim whatever they got in their credit card tips. So they would show they have some income or whatever when they go to the bank or whatever. But they would the majority of their money would be in cash, so they would not have to report that. Well, people don't use cash for shit anymore. And so your average server, exotic dancer, masseuse is making a lot less money these days because they're getting taxed on their tips. Now Trump is promising to make those credit card tips not taxed. If you're an exotic dancer, Cheyenne, you're listening. You could put a little more money in your pocket.
That's a pretty slim demographic to go after to have that person speaking at the first day of the convention. I will grant I didn't watch it. I don't care a ton about it, but there's no reason for it, and it's pandering. Battle Beagle on Twitter made a really great post about this, and I hadn't thought about it at the time, but in retrospect, it seems obvious. I mean, the first part is Trump is the Republican Party. Yeah, everybody realizes that. The issue is once he's gone, the RNC version of the quote coalition of the fringes will implode, most likely implode. And I never thought of it this way, but you've heard of the coalition of the fringes. Was that a Sailor joint, or I think it was Steve Sailor or Sam Francis, whatever, one of those old heads. He described the progressive coalition that way. It's a coalition of people who are of disparate people who all have one thing in common. There, if you be nice about it, outsiders. Well, the GOP is something that now can only identify itself as we're not Democrats. Now you're the coalition of the fringes. So being a place to store the thoughts and all this stuff, that makes more sense. However, that means that once Trump's gone, the party's over. Once the cult of personality has left the building, you don't have a party anymore. There's really nothing there. And their instinct is to pander towards the Democrats' base. This is what they always do. They've done it our entire lifetimes. That's why they've slowly moved in the Democrats' direction. I wanted to highlight something that you replied to, and I won't dwell on this because this comes up a lot, but that's just because people never seem to learn the lesson. Here's a quote. Mega churches and prosperity gospel have always made it hard for me to take evangelical Christianity seriously. Having attended, blah, blah, blah. It's cringe. It's bad. It feels like bad entertainment, spirituality. Here's the part. I don't want to be rude, but it seems like a bad idea to give such folks an outsized place of priority in the GOP tent. First of all, Fisher King 64, you're a fucking idiot. We didn't get awarded a place in the tent. We are the fucking tent. The party doesn't exist without us. If we stopped voting again like we did in the 70s, this is Canada. So please stop with the why do we care what these people think, because they are the party. And I don't mean Joel Osteen, because Joel Osteen and prosperity gospel preachers are like a tiny fraction of evangelical Christians in America.
They're not part of any of the major denominations.
I don't know anybody who watches Joel Osteen. Do you? I don't even know anybody who watches Hagee. He was popular for a minute a long time ago, when like the VHS era, but I don't know anybody who watches him now.
Well, I mean,
what is this shit? Who are these people? Can you not look at? You can look at voter demographics and see how stupid this is. The evangelicals weren't like given a prize like to have a voice in the GOP. They had to, because the party was dead until the evangelicals came back.
Yeah, well, I mean, my reply to that, and that guy has never replied to me ever. I put Joel Osteen is not part of the Southern Baptist Convention or any of these major denominations, which Southern Baptist Convention represents at least 13% of American citizens, like Americans go to church regularly.
There's only two real denominational churches, right? Because obviously non-denominational churches are growing. There's only two major denominational churches in the United States left that have real attendance: Southern Baptist Convention and Roman Catholic Church.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. So, these people, he's like, well, I like the, he was talking about, he likes the,
Catholic and Orthodox services because they have the aesthetics. Yeah.
Yeah. That's where all the leftists who are running the Catholic, they have a name for that and stuff. Their whole thing is that, liturgical. Yeah. They're all giant leftists. Yeah. So
this is a tricky situation, because in order to for people like this, when they say this shit, to respond in kind would be, well, for example, we have a beloved papist here with us right now. I'm not going to talk S about the Catholic or Orthodox churches because I have nothing against either of those churches. But this stuff like, oh, well, like they have more intimate environments and stuff like that. What you're talking about is aesthetics. And when you talk about your religion, not your religion, when you talk about religion in aesthetic terms, that's very R slur. That's not the point. And I mean, I guess maybe that by itself is a very Protestant view. Sometimes people who don't like us like to like post pictures of somebody's church that's in a strip mall, like, this is your average Protestant evangelical church. Yeah, okay, you got me. They don't have as much money. They're not as rich. You know what they do have? Belief. This is something that means something. And I don't think that, well, I guess actually I shouldn't say I don't think there's a danger of this happening. Because like as Fredo pointed out, Trump did snake the evangelicals at the convention. However, I give him a G pass because he got rid of Roe and he's done a lot. He's done a lot of stuff for us. But if the rest of the GOP thinks that you're going to do that, it ain't going to work. Because once Trump's gone, no one's going to care about this stuff. Evangelicals will go right back to not voting like they did in the 60s and 70s. And good luck. You can assemble whatever kind of Tory party you want to assemble after that's fine. And all these people who just can't stop posting about how much they hate evangelicals and how dumb evangelicals are. I mean, hey, if you get your wish, good luck. Because you live in New York City. I'm not worried about that future. Maybe you are, but whatever. This always aggravates me because it's so stupid and it's so transparently cultural, right? Like, why can't you just accept you're in a political coalition? I don't like these people either, but you have to kind of deal with them. You know, there are a lot of people who are in the Federalist Society that I don't particularly like, but if you're in a prison gang, you don't get to really pick who you roll with. You're stuck with each other.
Or I mean, we could play this game. I could say, well, that James Martin is a real, ass pirate. Therefore, all Catholics X or Y. Why would you do that? Why would you say that? Well, you could say that because we're the biggest. And, and I'll leave, as we play out here. I'm going to leave with some actual American aesthetics. So I don't know. You guys have anything else?
Nothing for me.
One quick note. I saw this and it was in what would have been the show if someone didn't try to kill President Trump. Let's see. Sorry. Let me scroll up here. This was a complaint. Here's the most consequential development of 2024 you didn't know about. Trump dismantling the RNC's ground game so he could divert money to a massive election integrity program. And this guy's complaining that the RNC has diverted a lot of funds to hiring people and training them to watch the polls. The marching orders are clear. Trump's lieutenants were to dismantle much of the RNC's existing ground game, which did a great job, by the way, and divert resources to a colossal new election integrity program, a legion of lawyers on retainer, hundreds of training seminars for poll monitors nationwide, a goal of 100,000 volunteers organized and assigned to stand watch outside of voting precincts, tabulation centers, and even individual drop boxes. Now, the person who's writing this is complaining that this is taking money away from the campaign that could be spent elsewhere. When I saw this, this is the first good news I've seen about the campaign in a long time. Because if you believe the polls and you believe how things are progressing, this is the bigger threat to you than a ground game is necessary. You know what I mean? This would be the thing that you would really worry about, right? Am I crazy?
No, I mean it's obviously it's a big deal. Clyburn is. I've read some reporting lately that says Clyburn is at the center of the ballot stuffing operation for the Democrats.
Of course. Yeah. So hey, this would have been a nice thing to have in 2020, but better late than never. I thought this was the first good news I'd heard for the campaign so far. We'll see where it goes. But that's all that I have.
All right, everybody. Thanks. We'll
Have a good night, everybody.
There's a place dear to me where I'm longing to be with my friends at the old country church. There with mother we went and our Sundays we spent with our friends at the old country church. Precious years of memories. Oh, what joy they bring to me. How I long once more to be with my friends at the old country church. As a small country boy, how my heart beat with joy when I knelt in that old country church, and the Savior above in His wonderful love saved my soul at the old country church. Precious years of memory. Oh, what joy they bring to me. How I long once more to be with my friends at the old country church. How I wish that today all the people.
You guys, thank you, everybody. Good night.